August 12th, 1943, 6:40 a.m., New York Harbor. The fog hangs low over the water, thick enough to swallow the skyline. A cold wind moves across the deck, carrying the smell of salt, diesel, and something unfamiliar industry. Steel on steel. Smoke without fire. Below deck, Obergefreiter Karl-Heinz Müller presses his forehead against a narrow porthole. The glass vibrates softly with the hum of engines. He hasn't slept. None of them have. The voyage across the Atlantic has been a blur of gray days, rolling seas, and guarded silence. British escort destroyers first. Then, somewhere past the Grand Banks, American ones, larger, faster, bristling with confidence. A shouted order echoes down the corridor. Raus. Auf Deck. Boots scrape metal. Chains clink. Men rise stiffly from bunks stacked 3 high. Field gray uniforms hang loose now, salt-stained and worn. The eagle and swastika insignia have been torn away, leaving pale scars on wool. Some still carry themselves, like soldiers. Others, like men already old. As they file up the ladder, blinking into the morning light, the harbor begins to emerge from the fog. First, the sound. Not church bells, not sirens. Machinery. A deep, constant roar, like the earth itself, working. Then shapes vast, angular silhouettes rising out of the mist. Cranes, warehouses, piers packed tight with ships, not a few, dozens. Liberty ships, tankers, troop transports. Lined up, bow to stern as far as the eye can see. Fresh paint, clean lines, no camouflage needed. Someone mutters behind Müller, barely audible. Mein Gott. The fog thins, and then they see her. The Statue of Liberty stands off the port side, green and immovable, torch raised into the gray sky. An American guard leans casually against the railing nearby, helmet tipped back, chewing gum. He doesn't look at them. He doesn't have to. For a moment, no one speaks. These men have marched across Europe. They have seen Paris under occupation, the factories of the Ruhr, the shattered villages of Ukraine. They have watched cities burn under Allied bombs. They were told America was soft, undisciplined, a nation of shopkeepers and jazz musicians, too comfortable to fight a real war. But this is not softness. The ship eases toward the pier. As it does, the scale becomes impossible to ignore. Warehouses stretch on like city blocks. Rail lines run directly onto the docks. Freight cars already waiting, hundreds of them. Trucks idle in long, orderly rows. Engines rumbling. Drivers drinking coffee as if this were any other morning. You can almost feel it then, the weight of it. The realization pressing down, slow and heavy. This place does not strain to fight a war. It produces war. American military police line the pier. Their uniforms are clean, their boots polished, their faces calm. No rush, no shouting. Everything is ready. Clipboards, lists, signs already printed with destinations. Camp Shelby, Mississippi. Camp Atterbury, Indiana. Camp Algona, Iowa. Printed, not handwritten. As the gangway drops, Müller notices something that stops him cold. A factory across the water windows, glowing even at this hour. Inside, rows of lights stretch endlessly. Conveyor belts move. Sparks fly. No blackout curtains. No fear of bombers. The war has not reached here, and it likely never will. An older sergeant, Feldwebel Otto Brandt, whispers to no one in particular. If they build like this, how do you stop it? Will. 100 stanchions. Into the tensioned. 100 stanchions. Will 100 stanchions. Will 100 stanchions. Will 100 stanchions. And I Feldwebel Otto Brandt. Whispers to no one in particular. The prisoners step onto American soil, one by one. No blows. No screaming guards. Just instructions. Counted. Recounted. A medical officer checks hands, eyes, Teeth. Efficient. Clinical. A young American private offers Mueller a canteen. Water, cold, clean. Mueller hesitates, then drinks. It tastes like home, but better. As they are marched past stacks of crates, Mueller reads the stenciled markings. 155mm shells, aircraft engines, rations, C rations, K rations, thousands upon thousands of them. And these are only the ones waiting to be loaded. A train horn sounds nearby, then another, and another. Brandt stops walking for half a second, staring at a freight train rolling past the dock, cars loaded with tanks, each one wrapped in protective coating, factory fresh. An MP taps him lightly with a baton. Keep moving. Brandt does, but something has shifted. Back in Germany, factories run at night to hide from bombers. Here, they run in daylight, daring the world to look. As the prisoners are loaded onto the waiting train, cars actual passenger cars, not cattle wagons, Mueller looks out the window one last time at the harbor. More ships are coming in, more are leaving. The flow never stops. He understands it now, though no one has said it aloud. The war is not just being fought with rifles and tanks. It is being manufactured hour by hour, mile by mile, by a country that seems to have no ceiling. And this is only the beginning. Because once the train doors close and the countryside starts to roll past, the German prisoners are about to discover that what they saw in New York Harbor was not America's peak of power. It was merely the front door, the journey inland. The train lurches forward with a metallic groan, and New York Harbor begins to slide away behind them. At first, the prisoners sit in silence. The passenger cars are old but intact upholstered seats. Intact windows, overhead racks, no straw on the floor, no guards crammed in with rifles raised. 2 MPs stand at either end of the car, relaxed, talking quietly among themselves. One hums. Karl-Heinz Mueller grips the edge of his seat as the rhythm of the tracks settles into something steady. Clack, 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 clack. It feels wrong, too smooth, too calm for men who were shooting at Americans only weeks ago in Sicily. The city thins quickly. Brick buildings give way to rows of wooden houses, then fields, wide ones, green and orderly, no shell craters, no burned-out farms, no columns of refugees dragging carts down broken roads. A voice breaks the quiet. "Where are the ruins?" someone asks in a low whisper. No one answers. Hours pass. Then, more hours. The train does not slow. It does not stop to let other traffic pass. It simply goes west, mile after mile, on tracks so well maintained, the car barely shudders. Outside, Mueller sees grain silos taller than church towers, stockyards packed with cattle, factories set back from the tracks, their smokestacks pumping steadily into a clear sky. Everywhere, motion. Trucks move in convoys without soldiers escorting them. Tractors plow fields the size of entire German villages. Small towns flash past each, with a station, a water tower, a school, a main street untouched by war. Feldwebel Brandt leans toward the window, counting under his breath. "How far now?" he murmurs. Mueller checks the sun. "We should have crossed 2 countries by now," he says. "In Europe." An American MP overhears and smiles faintly. "You're still in the same state." The words land harder than any insult. Same state. At one stop, the train finally slows. Not for a breakdown, not for inspection, for supplies. Crates are loaded efficiently, food, water, fuel. Mueller glimpses labels again. Chicago, Detroit, Pittsburgh. Names he's heard on radio broadcasts, usually paired with words like decadent and capitalist rot. If this is rot, he thinks, it is frighteningly strong. Lunch is distributed shortly after. Actual meals, bread that is soft, meat that is hot, apples fresh, not dried. A few prisoners hesitate, suspicious. Brandt sniffs his portion, then eats slowly, eyes down. "This is not ration food," he says quietly. This is normal food. The train resumes its relentless pace. Afternoon turns to evening. As darkness falls, something else becomes apparent. The lights stay on. Factories glow like islands in the night. Towns are lit fully, streets, homes, gas stations. No blackout, no fear. The sky remains empty except for stars. No bombers, no flak. No searchlights clawing upward in panic. You can almost feel the unease building inside the car. For years, German propaganda films showed American cities as fragile, dependent on imports, decadent, vulnerable. Yet here is an entire continent operating at full capacity, untouched, unthreatened. And the train keeps going. On the second day, the countryside changes again. The air grows warmer. Flatter land stretches to the horizon. Fields of corn roll by like green oceans. The prisoners lose track of how far they've traveled. At a brief stop, Mueller overhears two MPs talking. This one's bound for Camp Shelby. That's Mississippi, right? Yeah, big place. They'll be working soon enough. Working. The word ripples through the car. Back home, they were told captivity meant humiliation, starvation, forced labor under brutal conditions. Instead, the guards are polite, distant, but professional. When a prisoner collapses from exhaustion, a medic is summoned immediately. He's given water, checked, allowed to rest. No one is beaten. That unsettles them most of all. Brandt finally says what many are thinking. Why are they doing this? Mueller watches the endless field slide by. Because they can, he answers. And because they don't need to prove anything. Late that night, the train slows again, this time for longer. Outside, floodlights snap on, illuminating a sprawling complex beyond the tracks. Rows of barracks, watchtowers, warehouses, all laid out with geometric precision. A sign flashes past the window. U.S. Army Installation Camp Shelby. The train screeches to a halt. Doors slide open. Warm, humid air pours in, heavy with the smell of pine and earth. MPs step forward, voices firm but controlled. All right, gentlemen, time to disembark. As Mueller steps down onto the platform, he looks around and freezes. The camp is enormous, larger than any base he's ever seen. Barracks stretch into the distance. Trucks roll steadily along paved roads. Somewhere nearby, a training exercise rumbles artillery or tanks. This is not a temporary holding area. This is a system. And suddenly, the realization hits him with full force. What they witnessed in New York Harbor, what they saw from the train window, that wasn't just abundance. It was preparation. Because if America can afford to treat its prisoners this well, if this is how it handles the men it has already defeated, then what must it be doing for the war it still intends to win? Inside the machine, morning comes early at Camp Shelby. Not with shouting, not with kicks or rifle butts, with a whistle. A single, sharp note cutting through the humid Mississippi air at 0600 hours. Karl-Heinz Mueller blinks awake, momentarily disoriented. The barracks ceiling above him is wooden, solid, recently built. The bunk beneath him doesn't creak. The mattress is thin, but clean. A small luxury he hasn't felt since before the war. Around him, men stir. Boots hit the floor. Someone coughs. Another man sits up slowly, rubbing his eyes, as if still expecting the nightmare to resume. It doesn't. Outside, the camp is already alive. Trucks roll past in neat intervals. American soldiers jog in formation along a gravel road, rifles slung, cadence steady. A flag is being raised in the distance, stars and stripes catching the morning light. The Germans line up for roll call. An American officer reads names from a clipboard, mispronouncing them with no embarrassment and no malice. Each name is checked off, counted, recounted. Efficiency. Breakfast follows. Eggs. Powdered, but eggs. Bread. Coffee. Real coffee, not chicory. Some men laugh under their breath in disbelief. Others eat silently, eyes down, as if acknowledging the food would be a betrayal of everything they were taught. Feldwebel Brandt sets his cup down slowly. This camp feeds thousands like this, he says, every day. Mueller nods. He's already begun doing the math. Thousands of camps, millions of soldiers, and still, the factories run without pause. After breakfast, the purpose of Camp Shelby becomes clear. Work details. Not punishment labor. No whips. No screaming overseers. Instead, assignments are posted on boards in 3 languages: lumberyard, road repair, agricultural support. Men are chosen based on physical condition and pre-war occupation. Farmers to farms, mechanics to workshops, clerks to warehouses. Mueller, once a machinist in Essen, is assigned to equipment maintenance. The motor pool alone is staggering. Rows upon rows of trucks brand new. Tires unworn. Engines spotless. Crates of spare parts stacked higher than men's heads. American soldiers move through the yard calmly, checking off inventory as if there is no urgency because there is no shortage. An American sergeant, James Walker, oversees the area. He's in his 30s, sleeves rolled up, grease on his hands. He gestures Mueller over. "You worked engines?" Walker asks. "Yes," Mueller replies cautiously. Walker nods. "Good. We've got a generator acting up." They work side by side in near silence at first. Mueller notices Walker's tools, precision-made, standardized, identical to the ones used at every station. No improvisation, no scavenging. Everything fits. Everything works. When Mueller finally speaks, it surprises even him. "In Germany," he says, "we repair the same truck again and again. There are no replacements." Walker tightens a bolt, then looks up.
"Yeah?" he says. "We don't really do that."
He gestures around them. "If something's worn out, we swap it. Faster. Faster." The word echoes. At midday, Mueller watches as a convoy rolls out dozens of trucks, each loaded, each identical. Somewhere, he knows, they will end up at a port, then on a ship, then on a beach in France or Italy, and behind them, another convoy will already be forming. During lunch, conversations start hesitant at first, then more open. An American private shows a German corporal photos of his home in Ohio. A farmhouse, a barn, his wife, standing proudly beside a new tractor. "You got tractors like this back home?" the private asks. The corporal shakes his head slowly. "Not anymore." In the afternoon, Mueller is escorted to a factory just outside the camp perimeter. It produces vehicle parts thousands per day. The noise is overwhelming at first. Stamping presses, conveyor belts, overhead cranes. But what strikes him most is the order. Every worker knows his task. Every part flows forward. There are no bottlenecks, no frantic supervisors. The system absorbs mistakes and continues. An American foreman explains, almost casually, "We've got 3 shifts, runs all day." "All day?" Mueller repeats. The foreman shrugs. Why wouldn't it? That night, back in the barracks, the men sit on their bunks, drained not from exhaustion, but from understanding. Brandt stares at the wall. "This isn't just industry," he says. "It's depth, redundancy. They can lose a factory and not even feel it." Someone else adds, "They haven't even mobilized fully." That's when the room goes quiet, because they realize something terrifying. Everything they've seen, the food, the camps, the endless convoys, the factories running without pause. This is America restrained. The war has not yet demanded everything from it. As Mueller lies back on his bunk, listening to the distant hum of machinery beyond the wire, a single thought settles in his mind, heavy and unavoidable. If this nation ever decides to unleash its full strength, there will be no stopping it. And tomorrow, they are scheduled to visit a Coca-Cola bottling plant, the moment that broke the illusion. September 3rd, 1943, Camp Shelby, Mississippi. The heat is already pressing down by mid-morning, thick and wet, clinging to skin and uniform. The German prisoners are lined up beside a paved road just outside the camp perimeter, waiting. A military truck idles nearby, engine purring smoothly. Karl-Heinz Müller shades his eyes as a convoy approaches not armored vehicles this time, but something far stranger. Delivery trucks. White, clean, branded in bright red script. Coca-Cola. The trucks roll in like they belong here, because they do. Feldwebel Brandt lets out a short, disbelieving laugh. That's propaganda, he mutters. It has to be. But it isn't. The prisoners are marched inside a low industrial building humming with motion. Bottles clink and rattle along metal rails. Machines fill, cap, label, and pack them with hypnotic precision. Workers, mostly civilians, move calmly, efficiently. Some nod at the soldiers. One woman waves. An American officer explains the process through a translator, voice casual. This plant supplies the region, military bases, civilian markets. How many bottles a day? Brandt asks. The officer checks a clipboard. About 200,000. The number hits harder than artillery. Müller watches a pallet being wrapped and loaded. Another follows immediately. Then another. The line never pauses. In Germany, Müller says quietly to Brandt, sugar is rationed. Glass is rationed. Fuel is rationed. Brandt nods slowly. Joy is rationed. The officer overhears. He doesn't argue. At the end of the tour, something unthinkable happens. Crates are opened. Bottles are handed out. One to each prisoner. Cold. Beaded with condensation. Brown liquid swirling inside like something alive. A Coca-Cola. For a moment, no one moves. This drink, this symbol of American excess, was mocked endlessly in German newsreels, shown as proof of moral decay, softness, a culture addicted to sugar and pleasure. Müller twists the cap. The hiss is sharp, unmistakable. The first sip is shocking. Sweet, cold, perfectly carbonated. Around him, men drink in silence. Some smile despite themselves. One man closes his eyes. Another laughs, a short, broken sound that quickly turns into something else. Because it isn't the drink. It's what it represents. This factory, this entire operation, exists not to feed soldiers or fuel tanks. It exists to make people happy. And it is running at full capacity. During wartime, Brandt lowers his bottle slowly. They can afford this, he says, voice flat. Even now, back at camp, the effect lingers. Conversations change tone. Less bravado. Less talk of final victory. More silence. That evening, an American chaplain holds an open lecture, optional attendance. Curiosity draws many of the prisoners in. The topic is simple: production numbers. Not morale. Not ideology. Numbers. The chaplain speaks plainly. Last month, the United States produced more aircraft than Germany did in all of last year. More ships than the Axis can sink. There is no boasting, just facts. Müller feels his stomach tighten. Later, in the barracks, Brandt finally says what none of them want to voice. We were lied to. No one contradicts him. They think back to speeches, to promises, to maps showing shrinking enemies, to assurances that America was divided, inefficient, weak. Yet here they are, well-fed, housed, surrounded by abundance so vast it spills into luxuries. The illusion doesn't shatter all at once. It cracks. And through that crack, reality pours in. The next day, a newspaper circulates among the prisoners. An American one. Translated summaries are posted. The headline is about something happening thousands of miles away. New factories opening in California. Shipyards expanding again. Training camps doubling capacity. Doubling. Mueller folds the paper carefully. For the first time since his capture, fear takes a new shape, not fear of death, but fear of inevitability. Because wars can be won with courage, with sacrifice, with brilliance, but not against an enemy who can replace everything you destroy and still hand you a cold bottle of Coca-Cola afterward. And soon, they will learn something even more unsettling. Many of the American guards don't hate them. They pity them. The quiet defeat. By October 1943, the routine at Camp Shelby has settled into something dangerously close to normal. Roll call, work details, meals, even Sundays, lighter schedules, optional church services, time to write letters home. For many of the German prisoners, this is the longest period of stability they have experienced since the war began. And that is what frightens them most. Karl-Heinz Mueller sits at a wooden table in the recreation barracks, pencil poised over thin Red Cross paper. He has started this letter 3 times already. Each time, he stops. What do you tell your family when the enemy is kinder than the stories you were raised on? Around him, other men write. Some draw. A few play cards, using makeshift decks. Laughter drifts through the room. Quiet, restrained, but real. Outside the wire, America continues to hum. American guards rotate regularly. New faces arrive from training units. Many are barely older than Mueller was when he first put on a uniform. They ask questions, innocent ones. What's Munich like? Did you ever see Berlin? Is it true your winters are really that cold? There is no hatred in their voices, no hunger for revenge. One guard, Private Thomas Reed, brings a German-English dictionary to his post and practices phrases during quiet hours. He asks Mueller to correct his pronunciation. Guten Morgen, Reed says carefully. Mueller nods. Better. Reed grins. That night, Mueller lies awake, staring at the ceiling. Somewhere in the distance, a freight train passes. The sound is constant, now comforting. Almost. He realizes he no longer flinches at loud noises. In Europe, the war grinds on. Here, it feels decided. The true defeat does not come with a battle. It comes with information. One afternoon, prisoners are allowed supervised access to a newsreel screening American footage shown openly. The translator stands at the front, voice steady. Italy has fallen. The Allies are advancing north. Strategic bombing intensifies over Germany. Production numbers follow. Charts, graphs, cold, merciless clarity. Mueller watches Brandt's face as the figures are read. The older man doesn't react at first. Then his shoulders sag, almost imperceptibly. Later, back in the barracks, Brandt sits on his bunk, hands folded. I used to think, he says quietly, that even if we lost cities, we could outlast them. No one responds. You can't outlast a machine like this, he continues. Not when it grows stronger, the more you fight it. The prisoners begin to change. Not outwardly, uniforms remain the same, posture mostly intact, but something inside them loosens. The rigid certainty fades. The slogans stop appearing in conversation. The war becomes something happening elsewhere. Some begin attending English classes offered by the camp. Others volunteer for additional work details not out of fear, but curiosity. They want to understand the system that crushed them without ever touching them. One evening, an American officer speaks to a group of prisoners informally. You boys know, he says, leaning against a desk. Most of us didn't want this war, but once we're in, we finish things. Finish things. The phrase lingers. Mueller thinks back to the harbor, to the factories, to the Coca-Cola bottles sweating in the heat, to the endless trains. For the first time, he allows himself to imagine the war's end not in victory, but in collapse. Weeks later, a letter finally arrives from Germany. His mother writes of ration cuts, of factories destroyed, of nights spent in cellars, listening to bombs fall, of neighbors disappearing. Mueller reads the letter twice. then folds it carefully and places it beneath his mattress. That night, he understands something with terrible clarity. Germany is fighting for survival. America is fighting for completion. And those are not the same kind of wars. As winter approaches, rumors spread among the prisoners about transfers, about long-term detention, about post-war plans. Some men cling to hope of exchange, others no longer bother. Because deep down, they know. The outcome is no longer a question of if, only when. And soon, the final realization will come not from a newspaper or a factory tour, but from a single, simple comparison that leaves no room for denial. The comparison that ended the war. December 24th, 1943, Camp Shelby. Christmas Eve arrives quietly. There is no snow, only damp air and the smell of pine drifting in from the surrounding woods. Inside the camp, a strange stillness settles, as if even the machines outside have lowered their voices out of respect. Karl-Heinz Müller stands in line, holding a metal tray. On it, turkey, potatoes, bread, a slice of pie. A Christmas meal. Not symbolic, not reduced, a full one. Across the mess hall, a small American flag hangs beside a modest tree decorated with paper ornaments made by local children. An American chaplain moves among the tables, offering quiet words. Some prisoners attend the service afterward. Others sit alone, staring into nothing. Feldwebel Brandt doesn't touch his food at first. "This," he says slowly, "is more than we had at home in 1939. Müller nods. He doesn't trust his voice. That afternoon, something unexpected happens. The camp commander authorizes a visit. A short trip, under guard. The purpose is simple: labor support at a warehouse. But the route passes directly through civilian streets. Shops are open. Windows are filled with goods, clothes, toys, radios, fresh fruit stacked in pyramids. People move freely, laughing, arguing, living. No rubble, no hunger in their eyes, no fear of sirens. Children play in the street. One of the prisoners whispers, "They are at war, and they live like this." An American guard overhears. He doesn't bristle, he just answers, "We're busy, not desperate." That sentence ends the war for many of them, because desperation is something they know intimately. Back at camp, Müller sits on his bunk as dusk settles. Somewhere nearby, a radio plays softly American music. Swing, upbeat, confident. He thinks of his mother, of darkened rooms, of empty shelves, of factories, bombed faster than they can be rebuilt. Then he looks around him. Electric lights hum steadily. Heat fills the barracks. Outside, trucks continue to roll past, carrying supplies to ports, to ships, to fronts that are closing in. For the first time, Müller stops hoping for a miracle. Instead, he accepts the truth. Germany cannot win, not because its soldiers lack courage, but because its enemy has something greater. Margin. Margin to lose men and replace them. Margin to lose ships and build more. Margin to feed enemies while still feeding itself. Brandt speaks again, voice barely above a whisper. "We mistook suffering for strength." The realization spreads quietly through the camp. No announcements, no orders, just understanding. When 1944 comes, the news grows heavier. D-Day preparations. New offensives. Relentless advances. The prisoners follow the reports with grim calm. There is no cheering, no outrage, only inevitability. Months later, when the war finally ends, many of these men will return home carrying this memory with them, not of defeat in battle, but of defeat in scale. They will remember the harbor full of ships, the trains that never stopped, the factories that ran for happiness as well as war, the cold bottle of Coca-Cola in the Mississippi heat. And they will know, with absolute certainty, that the war was lost long before the last shots were fired. It was lost the moment they stepped onto American soil and saw a nation that could afford to be kind, generous, and unstoppable all at once.